If you've been involved with a narcissist on an ongoing, fairly close relationship, then you're going to notice that one huge ingredient tends to get right into the middle of the whole mix, and that's the ingredient of dishonesty. And then actually it turns into what I refer to as a two-way dishonesty, and we're going to talk about what that means in just a moment. But before we go there, I do want you to become aware of a couple of resources that we have available to you. Below the video, you're going to see a couple of links. One is to a book of mine. It's entitled When Pleasing You is Killing Me. And the other is by a colleague, Lora, and her book is called Ugly Love, A Survivor's Guide to Narcissistic Abuse. And then in addition to that, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to our channel so that as more videos come along, then you'll be notified of that and you can stay on top of this topic. Now, let's go back to this whole thing about narcissism and the dishonesty factor. It's fairly easy to recognize that whatever is going on in the narcissist is built upon a narrative of almost complete dishonesty. Now, what I mean by that is, let's just take a look at some of the primary ingredients. For example, the narcissist is convinced that he or she is supposed to be in total control. Pause right there. That's a false notion. You don't have to be in control. In fact, I actually tell people the best way to be in control is quit trying to be so in control. But the narcissist has this notion, falsely presuming that they're supposed to set the agenda for the people around them, and they just live according to that as if it's gospel truth. And so right there, we're operating on a premise that just is not well anchored at all in logic. Or in addition, the narcissist, with their low levels of empathy, they're convinced that they don't need input from others, nor do they need to attach in a loving or an interested way in other people's needs. The empathizer wants to tune into other folks, but the narcissist says, I don't need that. Well, again, that's dishonest. That's not a true notion. There's a certain interdependence that we have, and healthy relationships actually learn how to build upon that in such a way where you grow and I grow and we're able to help each other and assist each other along the path called life. Or another false part of the narrative that the narcissist lives with is the presumption that they are entitled to special treatment. They honestly feel like they're a bit above other individuals, so they act in a superior kind of way. They don't feel the need to receive input from other folks because it's like, well, everybody else is a peon and then there's me. I'm above all these folks. False. That's not true. But to the narcissist, it's very true. Or in addition to that, there's that high manipulation that the narcissist operates with. And they're convinced that even though they may have to coerce or shame someone into going along with them, well, it's kind of necessary because, well, they just deserve that, or they need me to tell them what to do. And so manipulative and exploitive behavior is rationalized, and all of that's part of their false narrative. Now, when we talk about developing a sense of honesty, there are a couple of layers that we want to watch for. And again, this is not part of the narcissistic pattern. For example, one of the layers is we need to have a certain internal honesty. First, there just needs to be an awareness within each one of us that we're human, we're flawed, and that's part of the equation. And so that being the case, we don't mind acknowledging, well, I've got blind spots. And when somebody points a blind spot out, it's like, got me on that one. What would you like to tell me about? What would you like to say? And internal honesty acknowledges that and allows for that. Or adding to that, part of that internal honesty, it means that you celebrate diversity and differences. People have different interpretations or ideas, and so that's something that's like, yeah, I see that to be the case. Therefore, I want to make sure that in my mind I make room for that. Part of your internal honesty involves a desire to grow and to expand, recognizing you're not a finished product. And so life is going to be an ongoing learning experience, whereas the narcissist doesn't have that kind of honesty. In their mind, it's like, well, I'm pretty much a finished product, and the only thing I can do is go from better to more better. So they don't have that that appreciation for their need to actually learn and to become even a better person, because they're already in their mind at the top of the heap. And then in addition, part of the internal honesty that you would have is you want to live life that says, I don't like being a secret keeper. I don't like being deceptive. I want to have a sense of openness there. And so when you have that internal honesty, then that leads to what we would refer to as an external honesty. You are going to be accountable to other individuals. You like being known. You practice self-disclosure very easily. You talk about who you are, what your highs and what your lows are, and what your needs are, and what your skill sets are. And there's just going to be a sense of fullness in the way that you talk with individuals. And again, narcissists don't like to do that. They like to stay on their agenda, and they've got an image they're attempting to craft. Honest people don't feel the need to just craft that image and just be glued to that. And so part of this whole notion of honesty is that there's a sense of authenticity, a realness. What you see is what you get. So let's recognize that narcissism is simply a pattern of life that does not lend itself to honesty. There's a built-in dishonesty from the very beginning. Now, I mentioned that we have what's called a two-way dishonesty. It's real easy to point to the narcissist and say, yeah, they've got a personality disorder, and so they're just messed up. But if you are engaging with that narcissist, particularly over a longer period of time, you're probably going to recognize that a certain dishonesty begins to emerge from within you in your responses. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let me just ask you, do you ever find yourself being guarded and measured and calculated in the way that you interact with that person? I can say this, but I can't say that. Or if I tell them a mistake that I've made, oh man, I'm getting so much trouble. Or if I expose a weakness or a flaw, that's not going to serve me well. So you wind up just being very selective in what you do and don't say about who you are and what you feel. That becomes part of your dishonesty. Or a part of your dishonest reaction back can actually be seen inside your appeasement or your people-pleasing tendencies. Have you ever thought of people-pleasing as being a dishonest approach to life? Most people-pleasers tend to be the nicest folks you ever met, and yet when you ask that people-pleaser, hey, can you come help me out? And they say, sure, I'll be glad to. Well, internally, they may be thinking, oh, I have so many other things I need to be doing, or this doesn't really fit with the priorities that I had planned out for today. Well, say that. But when you're dealing with a narcissist, it's like, yeah, but if I say that, it's just going to create some sort of a storm, and I don't want to have to be a part of that. And so appeasement. People-pleasing is a part of your dishonesty. Or another part of your dishonesty in reverse to response to the narcissist may be what we call allowing bad habits to creep in. Now, this is particularly true if the narcissist is a significant other, whether it's your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, or if it's a parent or a sibling, or somebody that you want to make sure that you don't get in trouble with. Many times I hear folks say, well, when I'm around this person, I just let myself go. And they'll talk about losing their sense of self, and they drink too heavily, or they start hanging around with the wrong crowd, or the narcissist insists that they have to be involved in certain behaviors so they go along to get along. And it's like, I don't like being this kind of person or doing the kinds of things. I've had people who will confess to me that living with a narcissist creates so much frustration that they have an entire secret way of life somewhere else, and they may be involved in an affair, or they hide the way they spend their money, or they don't talk about, just even simple things like, well, I spoke to my mother today, and my partner doesn't like me doing that, so I just don't tell them about it. And so you wind up allowing yourself to get involved in patterns that really aren't consistent with the true you. So let's take a look at a couple of concluding thoughts. And the first thing is, when you realize how deeply ingrained the dishonesty is into that entire relationship with the narcissist, I'm hoping you can recognize, I can do better than this. I don't have to let that other person so establish my pace that I wind up becoming a person that I don't even like. And so as you are able to identify some of the dishonest and some of the inconsistent elements that creep into your life because of all of this, I'm hoping that you'd be willing to slow down, think about who you are, and just go back to your basics. What are my core values? What lifestyle practices do I like? What kind of people do I like being with? When do I need to say no? When do I need to say yes? When do I need to say, this is what I'm going to do, and if the other person doesn't like it, then my next response is going to be, but I'm going to do it anyway. And just have that sense of openness and honesty. You know, one of the primary words that we often use when we're dealing with narcissists is boundaries, having good boundaries. Well, boundaries means that you've got a definition for who you are and you stay inside that definition. So built into our understanding of boundaries is an inherent sense of honesty. There we go back to that word, or another word, authenticity. Now, there's a high probability that as you have interacted with that narcissist a lot, you've got a lot of uncomfortable feeling that goes along with it. And I want you to just slow down and ask, what does this uncomfortable feeling inside of me communicate? Whether it's depression or anxiety or annoyance or anger or hurt. And with those emotions, there's a message that says, things need to be different. I can do better than this. So listen to that part of your emotion. It's trying to lead you in a good direction. So let me just give you 3 key words here as we close. The first word is listen. Listen to your heart. Listen to what it's trying to say to you. The second key word is adjust. When you need to, adjust your behaviors and adjust your external so that it matches what your internal life is trying to tell you. And then the last word is rest. Listen, adjust, rest. Rest in the comfort of your own internal well-being and your own internal character. When you've got a good character that's there, that wants to come through, let it come through. And as you make these kinds of adjustments and get away from that dishonest pattern that the narcissist keeps inviting you to join them with, you're going to feel a whole lot better about yourself. Honestly.